No one saw it coming. After 2 decades together, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's marriage was an emblem of Hollywood romance. Smiles on red carpets, adoring fans, and chart-topping hits made them the golden couple. Yet behind closed doors, secrets began to fester. Today we pull back the velvet curtain and reveal the truth that shattered a 19-year union. It all starts in September 2025, when divorce papers quietly landed at a courthouse in Nashville. No paparazzi frenzy, no red carpet drama, just sterile legal filings that would expose custody restrictions, surprise drug testing protocols, a prenup signed weeks earlier, and a list of demands no marriage counselor could have predicted. Suddenly, the world realized that every gleaming wedding photo had masked a darker reality. For years, Nicole's star power eclipsed everything. From her earliest days on Australian stages to blockbuster films and Oscar-winning performances, she built a career defined by resilience. Keith, the country music sensation, balanced her spotlight with sold-out tours, platinum albums, and heartfelt ballads. Together, they seemed untouchable. Yet when two creative powerhouses collide, ambition can fuel devotion and also breed friction. Their love story began in 2005 at a Sydney gala. She was an international superstar, he was the gifted guitarist from New Zealand. Sparks flew instantly. 4 months later, after rehab interventions and private vows, they married in an intimate ceremony that cost $500,000. Whispers circulated about her Scientology ties and his past addictions, but to fans, they were proof that passion could conquer any obstacle. Fast forward to 20. He skipped premieres, flew solo to festivals, and changed the lyrics of his hit songs to avoid Nancy's face among the front-row celebrities. When questioned, his team offered benign denials. But behind closed doors, their marriage was unraveling at the seams. What drove them apart? Financial power plays surfaced first. Nicole's annual earnings soared past $20 million, while Keith's chart-topping revenues had dipped by 40% since 20. Late nights in separate mansions, conflicting schedules, and the pressure of public image created silent resentments. Experts say that when one partner becomes the primary breadwinner, role reversals can breed insecurity. Keith's pride as a country star clashed with her commanding Hollywood reputation. Then came the band member who held Keith's gaze longer than usual, an alluring young guitarist, barely half his age, whose on-stage chemistry raised eyebrows. Tabloids spun rumors of affairs. Though Keith denied any romantic involvement, the suspicion added fuel to a relationship already teetering. Meanwhile, Nicole was juggling movie premieres and negotiations for her long-awaited memoir, Grace and Grit, which insiders say will delve deeper into marital trials than any headline ever could. Custody arrangements underscored the bitterness. Court filings stipulated that Nicole would have 306 days with their 2 daughters, leaving Keith with just 59. Every visitation required drug testing, neutral drop-off locations, and sobriety counseling. Suddenly, the couple who once exchanged whispered vows on yachts now negotiated neutral meeting spots under legal supervision. Contrast frames every turn. Public appearances painted perfect portraits. Nicole glowing at Cannes, Keith serenading crowds in sold-out arenas. Yet the same week, her film Baby Girl premiered at Venice to rave reviews. Keith was photographed dining alone in Nashville, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. The image went viral, a defining snapshot of a marriage in crisis. To understand how they got here, we rewind to childhood. Born in Honolulu in 1967, Nicole's early life was shaped by academic parents who marched against the Vietnam War. Witnessing her mother handcuffed while carrying a baby, Nicole instilled in her a lifetime of courage and activism. At age 3, the family moved to Australia, where she endured mockery for her height and red curls. By 10, she sought refuge in books and ballet classes. Her dance dreams ended when she shot up to 5'11". Sunburns drove her indoors. She traded tutus for drama classes and found early acting success in BMX Bandits. By 19, she was on the brink of Hollywood. Injuries on set, cryptic therapy controversies surrounding her father, and relentless auditions tested her resolve. Yet she persisted, eventually landing Days of Thunder alongside Tom Cruise and winning hearts worldwide. Keith's story had its own twists. Raised in a Kiwi family of musicians, he discovered guitar strings early. His breakthrough came in Auckland pubs and Australian radio stations. Personal battles with addiction nearly derailed him until Nicole staged a private intervention in 2006, driving him to rehab and solidifying their bond. She once said she wrote an ultimatum: "Choose me or your demons." He chose her, launching a partnership celebrated in country hits and award ceremonies. Their joint philanthropy painted a picture of harmony. They championed children's hospitals, supported women's shelters, and stood on stages together, offering speeches about family and love. Yet fame's glare can magnify cracks. When Nicole's film career soared, she altered schedules to accommodate Keith's tours, only to discover that balancing two star-driven calendars was like juggling fireworks. By 2019, whispers of tension emerged during bombshell promotions, where Nicole portrayed a resolute anchorwoman. Keith's appearances dwindled. Their social media feeds, once synchronized, began posting on separate days. Fans speculated about road trips without matching selfies. Industry insiders noted closed-door meetings with divorce attorneys and mediators recommended by Dr. Phil. The final straw came during Baby Girl's 2024 Venice debut. Rumors swirled that Keith walked the red carpet with another performer. The press mistook a young guitarist's enthusiastic hug for an intimate embrace. Keith's management released a terse statement. He respects all his bandmates, but in doing so they fanned the flames of suspicion. Now in September 2025, the legal battle has stripped romance from the story and laid bare a strategic divorce. Nicole's attorneys filed in Tennessee to expedite proceedings. Asset division was surgical. Their Nashville estate switched titles, vintage guitars were itemized, and even airline miles were split. No alimony dispute, no post-nuptial fight, just meticulous legal choreography. Throughout this narrative, the biggest revelation remains Nicole's voice. In confidential depositions, she described late-night arguments about trust, whispered apologies followed by days of silence, and therapy sessions that ended with both partners questioning their identity. She wrote, in excerpts we've obtained, that she felt like a queen in a cage, adored by millions yet lonely at home. Her powerful image concealed a longing for genuine partnership. From the moment the divorce papers were filed in that hushed Nashville courthouse, the world began to see the cracks that had formed in Nicole and Keith's seemingly unbreakable bond. Suddenly, every public appearance, every smile, and every candid photograph was scrutinized for hidden tension. How had two stars who had once completed each other's sentences at award shows drifted so far apart? In hindsight, clues were sprinkled across years of red carpet interviews and social media posts. The pregnant pause when a question touched a tender topic, the forced laughter that never reached Nicole's eyes, the polite applause Keith offered at premieres that once lit his wife's face with pride. In the weeks leading up to the breakup announcement, friends close to the couple described mounting frustration behind the scenes. Keith's notoriously grueling tour schedule collided with Nicole's intense shooting commitments for paths that rarely intersected. Nights that once held intimate dinners were traded for solitary hotel rooms and late-night studio sessions. Trust became a scarce commodity. Whispers of resentment flitted through their inner circle like restless ghosts. Resentment fanned by exhaustion, the constant pressure to be perfect, and the nagging fear that success had become a wedge between a husband and wife rather than a force that united them. The most telling sign came during an exclusive profile in a glossy magazine where Nicole spoke of reinvention and resilience but omitted any mention of her husband. Her interview painted a portrait of a self-sufficient woman carving her own path, which could have been empowering had it not felt like a declaration of independence from a marriage she once called her anchor. Keith's response was equally revealing. He granted a rare radio interview in which he praised her talent, yet his voice trembled when asked about their home life. He stumbled over his words, offering a rehearsed-sounding platitude about partnership that felt hollow even to sympathetic listeners. Amid the swirling gossip, both stars leaned on therapy as a last resort. Confidential sources revealed that they attended couples counseling on Zoom between continents, only to find that different time zones mirrored the distance between their hearts. Each session ended with platitudes that dissolved the moment they hung up the phone. Meanwhile, private messages and emails leaked to tabloids suggested that both were cataloging grievances in separate journals, logs of hurt feelings that transformed small slights into insurmountable walls. Their children, Sunday and Faith, became innocent observers of a pain neither fully understood. Once shielded from the glare of media frenzy, they now found their world splashed across tabloids under headlines like "Custody War Begins." Nicole's maternal instincts kicked in as she fought for extended visitation rights, determined to protect her daughters from the fallout. Keith, who had always been the doting father singing lullabies in the green room before concerts, found himself forced to prove sobriety with surprise drug tests and structured visitation protocols. In family court, earnest testimonies about bedtime routines and school pickups revealed a side of celebrity life most fans never see, the quiet agony of a fractured family. Contrast is what makes this story resonate. We saw Nicole radiating strength as she accepted her second Oscar nomination for a role she later described as transformative. At the same time, Keith crafted his most vulnerable song yet, its lyrics laying bare his shame at seeing the love of his life grow distant. That single ballad soared up the charts as fans sensed a genuine ache in every note, not knowing it was scored against the soundtrack of personal heartbreak. Financial details in the filings illustrated a modern-day reversal of fortunes. Nicole's earnings had ballooned into the tens of millions, while Keith's revenue plateaued as country music taste shifted. He agreed to a generous child support arrangement but balked at relinquishing assets tied to his career, vintage guitars, a Nashville studio, and royalties from back catalog songs. The negotiations moved with the precision of a boardroom merger, complete with line-item scrutiny and independent appraisals. It was wealth unspooling in real time, a cautionary tale about how success can become a toxic asset in personal relationships. Through it all, the couple managed a final joint appearance at charity night in Los Angeles. Dressed in coordinated black ensembles, they walked a photographer's dream walkway hand in hand, only to separate at the entrance and pose for pictures on opposite sides of the venue. Pundits called it a masterclass in mixed messaging. The world saw a couple united by a cause, but the headlines read, "Divorce rumors swirl after awkward red carpet." As their legal battle progressed, a common theme emerged. Both Nicole and Keith desperately wanted to rewrite this chapter of their lives. She penned tearful journal entries about wanting to save what was left of their partnership. He composed unsent letters apologizing for nights he spent in the studio instead of at home. Yet legal counsel encouraged them to maintain a facade of civility. Public relations teams coached them to share joint statements emphasizing amicable resolution, while behind closed doors emotions flared like wildfire. What happens next remains unwritten. Will two of the world's brightest stars find a way to co-parent in harmony, setting an example for divorced couples everywhere? Or will this saga end as a cautionary tale about the peril of mixing fame, fortune, and family? The public will be watching every step, hungry for the kind of intimate detail that only time, and perhaps Nicole's forthcoming memoir, can provide. The hush that followed those legal filings belied the storm that had been brewing behind closed doors for months. While fans scrolled Instagram for photos of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban in love, each carefully staged shot masked a private war waged in late-night arguments and silent treatments. By the time Olivia, their mutual publicist, crafted a statement about personal decisions and best interests of the children, the damage had already been done. Friends who once described the couple as inseparable now spoke in hushed tones about a marriage on life support, and industry insiders whispered that expensive weekend retreats had turned into isolated solo getaways. One producer who worked with Nicole on her recent psychological thriller recalls a moment that went largely unnoticed by cameras. The two were filming in a chic London hotel suite, surrounded by monitors and makeup artists, when Nicole stepped outside to take a call. She answered with a polite, "Keith?" "Yes, darling." Then her voice dropped to a tremor. A half-minute later she returned on set, masking the tension with a serene smile. Those few seconds captured the dual reality she had come to inhabit, a life of red carpets and glamour, and another of heartache and uncertainty. Contrast that with Keith's experience on stage at the Grand Ole Opry. He had always thrived in front of cheering crowds, strumming chords that echoed through the rafters. But in late 2024, fans began noticing that he rarely mentioned Nicole in his introductions. He sang his hits with passion but left out the personal anecdotes, the playful banter about late-night writing sessions, or backstage jokes only long-term partners share. The absence spoke louder than any lyric. It was as though he was performing in a solo, even as the spotlight once shared with his wife lingered in the wings. Amid media speculation, the couple sank resources into private therapy. Sources confirm that sessions alternated between joint meetings and individual counseling. One therapist notes that in these confidential rooms Nicole was often the first to speak, describing her sense of isolation even when surrounded by accolades. "I feel like a ship sailing in circles," she reportedly told a counselor. Keith reportedly responded with a wounded defensiveness, describing how criticism from the press over his chart performance stung more because it seemed to coincide with criticism at home. The therapy transcripts paint a portrait of two partners who still cared for each other, yet felt abandoned by the very love that once defined them. Financial entanglements further complicated the proceedings. Nicole's production company, Blossom Films, flourished with hits like Big Little Lies and her upcoming memoir deal. She had built an empire that extended beyond acting into producing and development, an empire that she viewed as her legacy. Keith had established a brand as well, with a record label and a signature line of guitars, but revenues had plateaued. Insiders say he felt pressure to maintain the status of the Urban Kidman brand, and when their combined earning power tipped in her favor, the shift rattled him. He confided to a close friend that he feared becoming the less successful half of a power couple, a fear that was not soothed by their combined philanthropic projects or red carpet appearances. At the heart of the conflict lay differing visions for the future. Nicole wrote in private journals about wanting to travel, to expand into international productions, and to invest in charity initiatives abroad. She envisioned a mobile life, leading film crews from Australia to Europe to Asia. Keith, by contrast, saw community as his anchor. He dreamed of expanding his Nashville studio, mentoring emerging artists, and building a legacy rooted in his hometown's musical heritage. The clash was not just about schedules but about identity. One spouse yearning for a perpetual motion, the other longing for a rooted home. Rumors of an affair with his backup guitarist surfaced online but remained unconfirmed. Both sides focused on more pressing issues, legal clarity and protecting their family, rather than chasing salacious headlines. Emotions intensify. Tension remains palpable. The custody battle, perhaps the most wrenching chapter, laid bare the emotional stakes. In depositions, Nicole described the agony of asking her children to choose between two homes. She fought for a parenting plan that would allow Sunday and Faith to maintain a sense of normalcy, to attend the same schools and keep weekend routines intact. Keith, mindful of maintaining his own bond, agreed to detailed visitation schedules and even volunteered for supervised playdates to demonstrate his commitment. Behind the scenes, both parents reportedly cried while negotiating drop-off logistics at a neutral cafe in Franklin, Tennessee, a stark departure from the glamorous gala entrances they had once shared. Even as the divorce proceedings churned through legal systems, Nicole and Keith maintained an outwardly composed demeanor, each carefully curating their social media presence to reflect a sense of dignity and moving forward. Fans saw Nicole sharing behind-the-scenes glimpses of her upcoming series set across Italy, captions emphasizing gratitude and growth. Keith posted a silhouette photograph of his guitar beside an open road, a cryptic nod to new beginnings. On the surface, it seemed they were orchestrating parallel comebacks, Nicole as the resilient heroine of her own story, Keith as the wandering troubadour on a fresh musical journey. But beneath the curated images lay a complicated tapestry of old wounds, lingering attachments, and the search for self. Their PR teams moved in tandem, coordinating announcements so that neither star upstaged the other. Press releases for Nicole's memoir deal, a multi-million-dollar contract with Grace and Grit as the working title, landed the same week. Keith announced a charitable concert series benefiting addiction recovery programs. Both initiatives tapped into the narrative each wanted the public to remember: her strength in storytelling, his triumph over personal demons. Yet supporters of the couple wondered if these seemingly altruistic projects were also defense mechanisms against the specter of heartbreak and loss. Social media erupted in speculation. Hashtags like Nicole Rises and Urban Unplugged trended on Twitter for days, with fans debating who had emerged stronger. Influencers dissected every new post for hidden messages. Some pointed to Nicole's subtle wardrobe changes, favoring ensembles with armor-like silhouettes and pointed collars, as a signal of newfound empowerment. Others linked Keith's choice of acoustic sets in smaller venues to an intentional step back from the spotlight, a return to intimacy that contrasted with the glitz of stadium tours. Photographs of Keith strumming by candlelight in a Nashville chapel went viral, interpreted as a soul-cleansing ritual post-divorce. Meanwhile, tabloid magazines published speculative features about whether Nicole would channel her experiences into her next film, with working titles like Broken Vows and Second Act. Hollywood insiders whispered that casting directors had already begun eyeing her for roles requiring a hardened vulnerability: the estranged wife who finds redemption, the iconoclastic artist who defies societal expectations. Her team remained tight-lipped, offering only the note that following the couple's commitment to privacy, new creative ventures will be announced in due course. Keith's music label took a different tack, releasing a surprise EP titled Reclamation, featuring stripped-down demos that name-check themes of regret, loss, and self-discovery. The lead single, an acoustic ballad that references midnight calls unanswered and invisible walls, soared to the top of the country charts, adding fuel to rumors the song was directly about his marriage. Critics praised the EP for its raw honesty, while sympathetic fans speculated that he had sacrificed polished production in favor of emotional release. At charity gala appearances, both exes leaned into humanitarian causes. Nicole co-hosted a fundraiser for domestic violence survivors, drawing on her family's history of activism and personal connection to themes of empowerment. In speeches, she spoke about finding grace through adversity, a phrase that echoed through every major news outlet. Keith headlined benefit concerts for addiction recovery centers, often inviting former clients on stage to share their stories. Journalists noted that while their efforts addressed different social issues, both causes spoke to the underlying battles they had faced within their marriage. As the divorce finalization approached, the couple agreed to one last public collaboration, a joint statement emphasizing co-parenting and mutual respect. In a short video posted simultaneously on their platforms, they spoke from separate rooms, each offering a heartfelt message to their daughters. Nicole's voice quivered as she said, "Our family may look different now, but our love for you remains constant." Keith followed with, "No matter where life takes us, Sunday and faith will always be at the center of my songbird heart." The video concluded with a simple graphic, "Family, in all its forms." The next morning, before the ink was dry, the clips had millions of views. Comment sections brimmed with messages of support and sorrow. Memes appeared, imagining the two dancing to a duet that would never be recorded. Late-night hosts poked gentle fun, but acknowledged the poignancy of a couple using shared media to present unity even as they prepared to untether their lives legally. And so the curtain fell on one chapter. As divorce papers finalized, Nicole and Keith prepared for new acts. She returned to film sets across Europe, exploring roles shaped by her journey. He reconnected with roots, channeling Heartbreak into melodies that resonated with fans. Their lives continued to intersect in subtle ways, shared schools, co-parented holidays, yet the public narrative had irrevocably shifted. Eagerly hopeful new paths awaited them both onward. In the quiet aftermath of legal proceedings, both Nicole and Keith embarked on personal journeys that spoke louder than any tabloid headline. She, buoyed by the release of her memoir deal, retreated to a villa on the Amalfi Coast where she spent long mornings writing, staring over turquoise waters and drafting chapters on resilience. Friends describe a ritual, tea at sunrise, journal in hand, followed by ballet bar sessions on a sunlit terrace, an homage to the dance dreams she once shelved. By noon, she slipped into a simple linen dress and strolled through lemon groves, drawing parallels between tending trees and nurturing her newfound independence. Every step felt deliberate, a healing cadence that reminded her she was more than a wife, more than a star. She was an artist in control of her own narrative. Contrast that with Keith's early mornings in Nashville recording demos at his studio, where vintage amplifiers hummed like loyal old friends. He traded large arenas for intimate listening rooms, inviting small groups of fans and fellow musicians to witness raw takes of songs that sounded like diary entries. He experimented with fingerstyle riffs and sparse instrumentation, testing vulnerability he'd previously hidden behind layered production. His manager notes that for the first time in years, Keith arrived at sessions without a rigid plan. Instead, he let melody guide him, sometimes improvising entire choruses that referenced echoes of laughter and quiet kitchen counters. These intimate recordings hinted at a metamorphosis, a country heart willing to embrace folk simplicity and autobiographical truth.